Today we're taking a tour of Kilmainham Gaol in Dublin, Ireland, a former prison and execution site of many Irish revolutionaries, most notably those of the 1916 Easter Rising. It is by far the most depressing place in Ireland.
This is Magellan,
And this is Greyhound.
where we make videos about epic road trips, kayaking, hiking, and other outdoor adventures.
A monument to Irish nationalism and independence, Kilmainham is now a museum west of Dublin city centre, and we highly suggest you book time tickets well in advance. I forgot, and it was only total luck that I was able to get them for our last full day in Ireland. When did I buy them? Our first full day in Ireland. So yeah, that's 2 weeks. The tickets were €8 a person, and the last slot was the first tour of the day. No one likes being an early bird, huh? When we arrived, we checked out the outside while we waited for the inside. One of the more disturbing things you'll find is what's called the Proclamation Sculpture, which sits across the street from the jail and honors the leaders of the Easter Rising. The blindfolded and faceless statues circle a metal engraved stand of the proclamation of the Irish Republic. On each statue is inscribed an execution order and have bullet holes in their torsos. Okay, let's head inside. We were first placed into the courtroom inside the courthouse while we waited for our guide. This is naturally where trials would take place. We were then shown a holding cell next to the courtroom before being ushered into a courtyard where we received a briefing on the museum. At this point, our guide informed us that video was prohibited and only photos were allowed. Sorry folks, we'll just have to do our best from here. We were then brought into the Catholic chapel, one of 2 chapels at Kilmainham Gaol, where Catholic prisoners attended Mass every Sunday. It may have been the only place and time that isolated prisoners would see anyone else. This is the chapel where Joseph Plunkett, one of the signatories of the Proclamation of the Irish Republic, and Grace Gifford were married in 1916, hours before he was executed outside. The Protestant chapel is not open to the public. Our next stop is the West Wing, the oldest part of the jail, built in 1796 and consisting of 79 cells. It typically held those who were considered the worst prisoners, given that when first constructed, this wing had no lights, heat, or windows. Even with windows, this place doesn't scream comfort. And if you think humanity knows no bounds, the youngest prisoner here was reportedly only a few years old, and whose crime was begging for money. The next area of the West Wing is the landing where the leaders of the Easter Rising were held before being executed. And in this cell corridor, Eamon de Valera was imprisoned, for the second time, during the Irish Civil War. More on his first time shortly. You'll also pass the cell of Robert Emmet, a rebel leader from the 1798 Irish Uprising. And in this room learn about Charles Stewart Parnell, a significant Irish nationalist that we simply don't have time to explain here. This is the East Wing, built in the 1860s and famously used in many movies, such as Michael Collins and The Italian Job. There are 96 cells in all. Up top, you'll see Eamon de Valera's first stint in Kilmainham. Despite being a part of the Easter Rising, the United Kingdom chose not to kill him and commuted his sentence. After the Irish Civil War, he went on to become Ireland's 3rd president and 2nd Taoiseach, Irish for Prime Minister, and instrumental in forming Ireland's constitution. Remember Joseph Plunkett and his brief marriage to Grace Gifford? This is the cell of Grace Gifford, who was detained here during the Irish Civil War and painted pictures of the Blessed Virgin and the Christ Child on the walls. It really is hard to describe architecturally how this place, while full of light and beautiful, was such a place of ugliness. The next place is the Stonebreakers Yard, where in 1916, 14 leaders of the Easter Rising were executed. Below the Irish flag, there's a plaque which commemorates this grisly occasion. There are 2 crosses in the yard, marking where the executions took place. This cross marks the spot where James Connolly was executed. Connolly was not held in Kilmainham at all, but in one of the state apartments in Dublin Castle due to his injuries. Despite only having a day or 2 to live, he was carried here on a stretcher, tied to a chair, shot to death, and thrown into a mass grave along with the other leaders. The executions, Connolly specifically, caused so much anger that it fueled deep support among the public, which prior had not been that supportive at all. After this, you can check out exhibits inside a more formal museum setting, most notably a copy of the Proclamation of the Irish Republic. And that is Kilmainham Gaol, by far the most enlightening and depressing place in the country by far. Time for a pint! Otherwise, stay tuned, because the next time we show you Ireland, it will be a special full-length movie. We'll see you on the trails or in the water.